majority of their followers are believing such narrative. Facts will always be facts. Kung ang insidente nangyari dahil binangga tayo, winappercanon tayo, binuli tayo, these are established facts. Kung ikaw, vlogger ka, or social media influencer ka, I don't think na hobby mo lang na lahat ng sabihin natin pagdating sa West Philippine Sea, you go against it, sila ang originator neto mga fake news na to. They are against our position the West Philippine Sea. They are also supportive of Alice Guo. They are also claiming na wala naman tayong basihan dun sa paghuli ng mga Chinese spies. No? We are ready to move forward and do anything that is necessary. If you ask me, why is West Philippine Sea still matters to us? I think the most compelling reason is because West Philippine Sea symbolizes our own national identity as Filipinos. We have fought our independence and sovereignty long and hard, and we have national heroes who sacrifice their lives. Para sa akin, that's the most important reason why we need to keep on standing and fighting for the West Philippine Sea.
Welcome back everyone dito sa latest episode ng Pilipinas 360 Degrees. Recently, we had no less than the Secretary of Energy. Napaka-comprehensive yung discussion natin. But today, we have another very special guest. Hindi siya secretary pa, hindi pa siya presidential cabinet level, but nevertheless, one of the most prominent figures in Philippine government, especially sa usapin West Philippine Sea. Kasama po natin, ano ulit pangalan niya, sir?
Thank you, Richard. I'm Commodore Jay.
Commodore Jay Tarriela, of course. Si Commodore Tarriela, matagal na po natin kasama sa iba't ibang plataforma. And a very spirited patriot and of course, really an eloquent spokesman for Philippine national interest pagdating sa West Philippine Sea issue. Speaking of eloquent spokesman, medyo spicy yung language nyo recently sa TRICOM, no? Can you give me a context of yung, was it Mark Lopez ba yan or something? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was Mark Lopez. I think that was the third TRICOM meeting, bukod dun sa naging TRICOM meeting natin the other day. No?
Yeah.
Para kasi sa akin, well, those words.
August 23, 2024, he said, patriotism my ass. Kayo kaya ang taksil sa bayan dahil sunod-sunuran kayo sa dikta ng
I
Amerika.
just read, no? Yung mga pinost naman nila sa akin. But I think it is important for us to really call out those trolls or bloggers or social media influencers that counter our factual narrative when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. Ang argument ko nga dito, kung ang Philippine government is providing photos, videos, and even testimonial reporting ng ating mga journalists na ikinakarga sa barko, for them to actually witness what are those aggressive actions na pinagdadaanan ng Coast Guard, and yet, hindi pa rin yun enough sa'yo, you would still believe na tama yung narrative ng China, na tayo ang bumangga, tayo ang dahilan ba't nag-escalate ang tension, and tayo ang may problema because we're just being dictated by the United States. Parang para sa akin, may mali na eh. No? And unfortunately, there are instances that majority of their followers are believing such narrative. That's why it is important for us to really call them out and to tell the Filipino people that we should avoid this kind of narrative because it does not help our position in the West Philippine Sea.
Okay. Why in particular this vlogger? Has this vlogger been particularly targeting you throughout the years on the West Philippine Sea issue?
Well,
Parang medyo, hindi naman hugot, pero very spirited, yung back and forth, yeah.
You know, you can really look at him, how he behaved.
Yeah.
He even didn't call the West Philippine Sea as West Philippine Sea. He was very confident in saying South China Sea. At some point, he even questioned the congressman na ano daw ang nawala sa atin, na alam naman nating lahat what is happening in the West Philippine Sea. So those kind of behavior are really an evidence as well of where he really stands, no? And if you're going to browse all his social media posting, whether in Twitter or in Facebook, lahat yan countering our position in the West Philippine Sea.
But then again, of course, you have an academic background, you have a PhD in international relations. I work in the academy. We have diversity of opinions. How does diversity of opinion diverge from this? Na because naalala ko yung sinabi niya something along the lines of, well, ito yung mga binabasa ko, so ganyan ang perspective ko. So basically, he's exercising his freedom of expression. In what sense is that not an exercising freedom of expression?
Well, again, I'll go back to my main argument. Our claim, our position is based on factual narrative. Ang sabi ko nga, kung may mga insidente, meron tayong resibo. We have photos, images, and the reports of the media personalities themselves. No? So, I don't really believe kung sasabihin mo, no, it's my opinion. Again, everybody's entitled for their own opinion, but not with your own facts. Facts will always be facts. Kung ang insidente nangyari dahil binangga tayo, winuttercanon tayo, binuli tayo, these are established facts. Hindi ka pwedeng magsabing, hindi, based on my opinion, based on what I read, based on how I see it, Philippine Coast Guard ang bumangga. I think that's very unpatriotic and that is against our national interest. So, we need to understand that these are not opinion, that you cannot hide from the constitutional guarantee of freedom of expression. This complicates because, again, it's national security.
Commodore, I want to go back to this. So, okay, I think part of freedom of expression is also the freedom to remain ignorant or or worse. But basically, ang implication ng TRICOM hearings is that hindi ito usapin ng diversity of views or actually ignorance, right? Ang usapin dito is baka there's a systematic effort to engage in disinformation, right? Hindi ito misinformation lang na kulang sa impormasyon or konteksto itong tao na to kaya kung ano nung pinagsasabi. Hindi lang ito just crackpots. We're not talking about just crackpots. We're talking about people that allegedly are part of a systematic effort to undermine our national interest. Is that your understanding of what's happening? Although, of course, I'll leave it to NBI and relevant agencies to investigate this further.
Well, that's a fair question naman, Richard. No? But I think I have some inclination that I would agree with you. Kasi kung ikaw blogger ka or social media influencer ka, I don't think na hobby mo lang na lahat ng sabihin natin pagdating sa West Philippine Sea, you go against it, you find loopholes to counter.
Parang kinareer.
Diba? Why would you spend so much time writing blogs or writing posts that counters our position?
Pag-word sa buhay, iniwan ng jowa. I don't know,
diba?
sa mag-move on.
Pwede bang hobbyist ka lang na ang hobby ko buong linggo ngayon ay sumulat ng mga article that counters our position the West Philippines. I don't think somebody who was right mind of thinking would do that kind of activity, right?
And do you see, because from my own experience, I see, hindi naman copy-paste level. Parang sobrang almost similar yung talking points. It sounds like a chorus to me. It doesn't sound like independent people just expressing their views.
Yeah, and that was my presentation during the last FICOM meeting. Na meron talaga silang levels of dissemination of fake news and disinformation. Merong initiators. These are known social media influencers na mataas ang number ng following. Kumbaga, para sa akin, sila ang originator neto mga fake news na to. And then the next level will be the disseminators. No? The disseminators are like probably trolls. Ang gagawin lang nila ay
Farm operation.
Eto mga to.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know whether it's just multiple accounts na wala naman talagang identity yung gumawa. And then the third one will be the reposters. No? And then these reposters are probably fanatic ng ilang politiko or mataas na follower ng mga ilang figures. And that's it. No? And what really, who really was victimized with this kind of spread of disinformation is the general public. It divides the Filipino people when it comes to understanding of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. Like marami ring Pilipino kapag binasa mo yung mga post nila na naniniwala na ang West Philippine Sea ay katang-isip lamang. Na ang West Philippine Sea, wala tayong legal na basehan dyan. Na ang laban sa West Philippine Sea ay dikta lamang ng Amerika. Those kind of narrative, once you start amplifying in the social
false narratives,
are victimizing Filipinos, especially those who have very limited information of what's really happening.
Or don't have as much access to the right information and the right talking heads, no? Do you think it's natural? Again, I know it's a sensitive question. Now we have folks, friends like Yusek Malaya from National Security and others to discuss this. I also talked to General Torre about this kasi nagsampa din siya ng libel against one of the trolls who was attacking based on fake information. But do you think eventually dapat pupunta na tayo sa issue ng money trail? Kasi yun yung argument ng people like former Senator Trillanes. Now, when you look at a lot of individuals involved in attacking the government on different issues or in some way aligned to the former president, among others, it looks like this is a very well-oiled machine. And there could be even a suspicion that there could be even foreign powers or external forces involved in this. Do you think that, I'm not saying you to accuse anyone of treason, ibang usapan although I think sometimes you have abstracted languages that could, some would say, veer in that direction. Pero sa tingin niyo ba, dapat mayroon din systematic effort to see kung may systematic support from an external power? Kasi kung may money trail or may ibang usapan na yan, di ba? Medyo ano na yan, national security issue na yan. Do you think that should be the direction? Because at the end of the day, your entire transparency initiative is precise to unify the country based on the facts of the matter and based on our sovereign rights. So naturally, if someone wants to undermine that, is to fund purveyors of anything that contradicts that. So this could be a matter of foreign policy or coherent policy for interested parties.
Well, before I answer that question, Richard, no, I also want to note na as part of my presentation sa TRICOM, we also tried to intersect those points na nire-raise ng mga social media influencers na to na talagang pro-China trolls.
To counter fake news pervading wrong information about our fight in the West Philippine Sea.
They are against our position in the West Philippine Sea. Second, they are also supportive of Alice Guo when she was being tried by the Senate.
Third, you mean Go Waping, aka Alice. Yeah.
And then the third one, they're also claiming na wala naman tayong basihan dun sa paghuli ng mga Chinese spies, no?
Oh, wow.
So the intersection of these three issues ay pretty much pointing to China, right? So I would agree with you. It's about time for us to enact a law that would really look into the money trail ng mga tao na to na nagpapakalat ng misinformation and disinformation, whether about the West Philippine Sea or anything that concerns our national security.
Well, I mean, just to be fair, kung ikaw ay lobbyist for a foreign country or you're working for an embassy, anything, wala naman tayong problema, but be transparent about it, right? So I think we have existing legislation and existing infrastructure all around the world, in democracies, whereby kung ikaw talaga ay lobbying for a certain country, for business, for politics, whatever, as long as you're transparent about that, well, I won't respect you as much in terms of your patriotism, but at least for your transparency. Ang problema kasi natin dito is there's some people who are pretending to be even professors or academics or I don't know, innocent bystanders, and but it looks like it's part of something else, right?
Well, speaking of claiming to be a professor, no, some of them now, in response to what transpired last time, are now invoking academic freedom as
From
as a
Chinese university.
as another excuse.
Just saying, like,
It's not just freedom of expression,
Yeah.
but it's academic freedom.
wow.
What we were asserting is based on thorough research, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, coincidental lang ba talaga na ang thorough research mo
Ay,
claiming
puro anti-Philippines.
ay anti-Philippines at pro-China
Right.
at anti-US, right?
Right. Well, I think we know the answer, but we'll rather not say it and we'll wait for more evidence to come out, and hopefully that's the direction we move. But are you happy that finally this TRICOM is happening? Because, Commodore, we have been having conversations for years because of this our common advocacy dito sa issue ng West Philippine Sea. Pero parang, ang pansin ko parang, ba't ang inintay pa natin hanggang ngayon? Pero in fairness, uminit talaga tong TRICOM na to at may papunta pa tayo sa interesting part. Have you been encouraged, if not impressed, by how the TRICOM has been slowly building up, or more than slowly building up, on investigating this serious matter of disinformation? Yeah.
Well, you know, as early as the announcement of Congressman Fernandez that they're going to have this TRICOM meeting to look into fake news and misinformation, I already appreciated such effort. Ang sabi ko, it's about time for us to look into this misinformation movement nito mga pro-China trolls na to, because it makes it difficult for the Transparency Initiative to really create awareness sa ating mga kababayan kung patuloy pa rin ang maling impormasyon pagdating sa West Philippines. And that right now, as things unfold in the past 4 TRICOM meetings already, we have seen already significant information and evidences as to what is really happening with that kind of trolling that there's.
Yeah, I want to go back to this because, of course, the big question also is where's the Senate, right? Which we'll discuss very shortly. I think we all know the answer why, but we'll discuss it shortly. But before that, ang napansin ko is nung una, I think marami dito sa mga, I don't know how to, purveyors, peddlers of fake news or alleged purveyors of fake news. I think nung una hindi nila sineryoso itong TRICOM, di ba? Hindi
Yeah.
napakita ng iba.
They
And
even challenge it.
They even challenge it. And then later on, nagpakita sila, and then andun pa rin yung sense of, I would even say entitlement. Some of them were talking as if they're singing to the choir or feeling nila they're still nasa poder sila. And then suddenly, next thing you know, umiyak yung isa umiyak. Even yung matapang mong kausap, parang, like,
Hindi, inamin niya na fake news.
Apologize po ako. Mali po ako. Sige po, fake news po ako.
and like, I was surprised na, parang yung from 1 to 10, yung level of confidence and aggression online is like 11 out of 10. And then nung nandun na siya sa TRICOM, parang 2 out of 10. Why are you surprised by parang deflated tire na nakita mo? I mean, what is your psychological analysis, if anything? Kasi, of course, this is close to your heart. You have been bullied but online trolled by these people for so long.
Well,
And
I
then
think-
biglang ganyan lang makikita mo.
I think because siguro nitong mga nakaraang taon, they were very confident na nobody can touch them. That they can hide from
Impunity.
impunity.
Yeah.
They can hide from the constitutional freedom of expression. So when they realize na pag pumunta ka talaga sa TRICOM meeting na to, this honorable congressman will really grill you, and they are really serious
Yeah.
in calling you out, making you more accountable about what you said and wrote. Yun na yung parang the fear started to kick in na parang seryoso na to. Hindi na pwedeng mag-joke lang dito.
Parang yung sa movie, yung bigla may scene, bigla na-realize, oh my God, ito yung reality, this is real, di ba? And then, nung nag-iyakan na yung iba, what did you feel? Naawa ka ba sa kanila or natawa ka? like, or you just said, or na-realize mo, na-realize na nila, iba na ang panahon ngayon. Things are moving in different directions.
Well, I think, in fairness naman, no, not all those enlightened bloggers and social media influencers have said something about the West Philippine Sea.
Yes.
Hindi sila lahat, you know. They
But
might
they
be-
share,
Yeah,
They help each
shared.
other. I know that from my own personal experience. Kahit yung parang kumaga, hindi shtick nung isang
Mhm.
i-share pa rin nila to amplify it.
Yeah.
I saw that.
And just last time, the other nitong natapos lang na TRICOM meeting, no, they were even asked each one of them kung what's their stand and what's their take in the West Philippine Sea. Well, all of them said that they are really supportive of our position in the West Philippine Sea. Wala kasi doon si Mark Lopez nung tinanong.
Nag-stand out in the wrong way.
Makaiba yung naging sagot niya sa akin.
Pero nasa Beijing na kasi yung ibang talking heads na malaki. Parang medyo dumadami yan sila. Although may balita sa akin, pati Beijing pinapalis na yata sila. But going back to this, bakit Senate? Nasaan ang Senado sa usapin na ito? Because I remember the first effort to really look at the issue of disinformation was by Senator Grace Poe. We can have a debate about whether that went right or wrong, and I'm sure Senator Grace Poe has her own explanation on that, and one day we'll discuss that separately. But basically, that was it. And then, etong TRICOM na to, talaga nakikita natin nag-level up itong Kongreso, sa Quadcom, sa TRICOM. Nasaan ang Senado?
Well, besides from Senator Grace Poe, you also have to remember na
This is
Senator-
the previous Congress, I'm talking about 2016 pa. Of
Yeah.
course, hindi na si Senator Grace Poe
yeah,
in
yeah.
charge sa issue na yan. Yeah.
Itong 19th Congress,
Yeah.
Senator Jinggoy
Right.
also made an effort to call out this
Kasi defense siya, national
Yeah.
defense siya, yes.
or
Committee on
mayor
National
ng fake
Defense.
news and misinformation. Unfortunately, hindi ko alam kung what happened, why such effort of Senator Jinggoy never really prospered, especially in having a public committee hearing like this. But I really look forward, no, in the next coming days, probably after election, that the Senate will also look into this because these are really efforts that we need to conduct. No?
Right.
And majority of the Filipino people are looking at the Congress and Senate right now.
Well, balita sa akin, I don't know who told me that. I think Senator Robin Hood Padilla will have to do something about this. I don't know what is he doing, honestly. Because I was there at the detention center. I was asking the journalist friend, who can visit Digong? Because I was hoping also, yeah, to see what's going on. Strictly, only family members lang daw and yung counsel niya and of course, consular affairs if ever kailangan niya. That's it. So, honestly, hindi ko alam anong ginagawa ni Senator Robin Padilla there. I mean, because he cannot meet Duterte, last time I checked. Wala siyang legal expertise. Hindi siya ICC accredited. I don't know if he's accredited by anything. But sa pagkaalam ko, siyang may kinalaman if ever there's going to be a hearing. But, well, let's just leave it to public opinion to see whether it will be a quality. I'm sure it will be a very interesting hearing if it ever happens.
So he is the chairman of...
That's what I heard. Na, I think Senator Ronald Padilla will be a key figure, or he will be the one tasked if ever to form this. That will be quite interesting. Because the good senator, I think, has also very strong views that some of us may not completely agree with, right? And probably his understanding what is this information could be different. But nevertheless, constitutional duty din nila. Kasi Foreign Affairs Committee has been very, very busy looking into the issue of the ICC arrest of President Duterte. So that shows na, well, re-election is si Senator Amy Marcos. So it looks like may time naman sila. Kaya naman nilang gawin. So I think let's just hope for the relevant senators and individuals to get this together. I'm glad to hear that Senator Jinggoy, who's in charge of national defense, is doing this. And I'm sure in the next Congress, if people like Senator Lacson come back who have really, really solid background on this, I think we'll see even more robust look into this issue. Because to be honest, Commodore, ang pansin namin is sobrang nag-level up yung Congress in the past year or so. And then yung Senate is, to be honest, even the senators I talked to within parang medyo nagpapakamot na ulo. So let's just hope maybe in the next Congress, things will move in the right direction. Now, I want to adjust the aperture a little bit and go into the geopolitics because that's also your expertise. First of all, how worried are we with the direction ng ating mga hidwaan dyan sa West Philippine Sea? We had General Bronner, the head of AFP, recently saying that, I think he also comes from Cordillera Baguio, we're from the same region. He's saying that basically dapat mag-ready na yung mga tao, especially mga sa northern Luzon and all, for potential contingencies in Taiwan. Many experts are saying what's happening in Taiwan cannot be separated what's happening from West Philippine Sea. Kayo sa Coast Guard, I know you're already overstretched because you're dealing with literally monster ships of China. But what is your assessment? Because you're also an international relations expert, Commodore. What is your understanding are we moving towards the D-Day or are we moving towards a new phase na even more dangerous? Just as all of these trade wars and all of these uncertainties in the geopolitical landscapes are emerging.
Well, alam mo ako, Richard, I'm very optimistic. I still see that an armed conflict is not something that is possible. In response to Joel Browner, as what the AFP has mentioned,
it's just preparation.
It's just for preparation. Yeah. It's not that he is being an alarmist of what's about to happen. He just said that we need to prepare, and I think that's a fair statement. Everybody has to prepare, just like what Sun Tzu said, right? If it in the times of peace, prepare for war. In the times of war, prepare for peace.
Yeah.
So nothing serious about that. Now, when we talk
aside the Chinese strategy, not this game. No, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, when we talk about the issue of the West Philippine Sea and Taiwan, I would disagree that these are two different issues. We have our own issues in the West Philippine Sea, and Taiwan has their own issue as well. As to you would weigh what is our priority, of course, that would always be the West Philippine Sea. The only issue that people and pro-China trolls are saying that is that our being treaty ally of the United States becomes a liability because we will be dragged
into the Taiwan conflict.
To Taiwan's conflict. Other than that, I think it's a whole lot of different contexts if you look at it.
So what you're saying is a much more nuanced understanding shows you that iba yung dynamics sa Taiwan, iba yung dynamics sa West Philippine Sea. So in short, pwede pa rin mag-compartmentalize. Or at least that's what you guys are doing right now with your transparency initiative. Pero sa pagkaalam ko, the Philippine Coast Guard is also becoming more active in the Batanes area, in the northern regions, right? Because we're trying to develop this whole archipelagic, comprehensive archipelagic defense concept. Anong role ng, nakausap na natin si General Loico and mga others, pero anong role ng Coast Guard dito sa comprehensive archipelagic? Because West Philippines is absolutely important, but we are an archipelago with 360 degrees surrounded by water.
Well, honestly, as far as the Coast Guard is concerned, I'm not sure whether the Coast Guard has something in that archipelagic doctrine they created with the Armed Forces of the Philippines, since we are not part of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Defense Department. But as what the Commandant, Admiral Ronnie Hilgaban, has been mentioning every time he's asked about it, regardless, whatever role that the Philippine Coast Guard will be tasked, not not by not just by the Armed Forces of the Philippines, but especially our Commander-in-Chief, the President himself, we are ready to move forward and do anything that is necessary.
And move forward also as you develop your capabilities, right? My sense is a Japanese and a French new vessels are coming in.
Yep.
You have been ramping up your capabilities. I've had the pleasure of visiting, your flagship vessels. They are modern. They're world class. I think isa rin yan sa hindi parang pansin ko online pag every time pinag-usapan ko, for instance, yung F-16 fighter deal natin. The way people talk about the Philippines is as if we're still in the 1990s or 2000 or even 2010. I think hindi na-appreciate ng tao how far the Philippine Coast Guard has come. For someone who's basically who's rise through the ranks, right, coincided with the rise of the Coast Guard, basically, right? I mean, since the day of joining the Coast Guard, look at how far. Can you give a summary of how far the Philippine Coast Guard has come? We have good friends like Dr. Jeff Ordiniel, who has been saying that actually Philippine Coast Guard is arguably among the best, if not the best, in Southeast Asian region. How did we arrive at this point? How did we? What was the story, the arc?
Well, the Philippine Coast Guard, since we were separated from the Philippine Navy in 1998, that became already the turning point of the Coast Guard having its own identity, different from that of the Navy. But we have to understand that when you talk about the Philippine Coast Guard then, we only see it as a maritime safety agency. Primarily, Coast Guard's role in 90s up to the early 2000s is always about maritime safety. We are always being blamed for the collisions at sea, the excess passengers, the sinking of domestic vessels. Parang nakatutok lang talaga tayo pagdating sa maritime safety. And that
So basically, parang kayong MMDA ng mga tubig, parang ganun.
Yeah,
diba?
and you cannot blame them because maritime safety is actually a core function of the Philippine Coast Guard. And then 2006, nagkaroon naman tayo ng oil spill incident.
Guimaras?
Oil spill incident. And then the Filipino people once again appreciated what Coast Guard is doing because it became clear that marine environmental protection has also been our core mandates in the Philippine Coast Guard. So from then on, from 98 up to 2009, until the Coast Guard law was passed, after the Princess of the Stars incident happened, during the time of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the Coast Guard is seen as a constabulary maritime seafaring agency, which is dealing only with maritime safety, search and rescue, and environmental protection. And then, all of a sudden, the 2012 standoff happened. And the Chinese propaganda then is that the Philippine government is militarizing the issue in...
Kasi naval warship ang Gregorio del Pilar pinadala natin.
Gregorio del Pilar is about to arrest Chinese poachers. And that led to the standoff for so many months. From then on, President Noynoy Aquino changed his approach. He was the one who first conceptualized the white-to-white ship strategy. So the Philippine Coast Guard's vessels then...
Meaning civilian Coast Guard to civilian Coast Guard or civilian issues.
Well,
like fishermen.
There is no China Coast Guard then. It was only in 2013 that the China Coast Guard was also created. They still have what they call the five
dragons,
leg dragons, right? Five neck dragons, right? So 5-headed dragons, and these are all maritime agencies. It was only in 2013 when they decided to combine everything and call it China Coast Guard. But in 2012 and 2013, when we started deploying Coast Guard vessel, our Coast Guard vessels inventory are only limited to 456 meters that came from Australia as well, and 435 meters, and 10 BFAR vessels, which is manned by the Philippine Coast Guard and are made from Spain. These are Spanish-made 30-meter patrol vessels.
So relatively small, and so did we even have multi-role patrol vessels?
Not yet, because in 2013, after the standoff, President Noynoy Aquino went to Japan to talk to Prime Minister Abe. And that was the first time that they discussed the possibility of using ODA for the acquisition of Coast Guard vessels. And that is the multi-role vessels that we have now. So after Noynoy Aquino, the 10 MRB 44-meter vessels were delivered during the time of President Duterte. And I would still say that under President Duterte's regime,
Tuloy yung,
he still used
in fairness.
the Coast Guard utilization in the West
In
Philippine
fairness,
Sea.
yeah.
And not just the Coast Guard utilization in the West Philippine Sea, but I would say that he also used Coast Guard diplomacy. You remember when, the Philippine Coast Guard even hosted China Coast Guard here. The Philippine Coast Guard has been very active in engaging ASEAN Coast Guard. And
I visited China Coast Guard.
China
Nice,
Coast- yeah. And we even allowed China Coast Guard to have port visit here in Manila during the time of President Duterte. So for President Duterte, he also was the one who benefited from the acquisition of the 97-meter vessel.
This is the big ones.
vessels.
Yeah.
The BRP Teresa Magbanua and BRP Melchora Aquino, and even the 83 meters that came from France, the BRP Gabriela Silang. And then comes President Bongo Marcos. He just continued basically the white-to-white ship strategy, the Coast Guard diplomacy, and right now
And Prime Minister Kishida was here the other year. Former Prime Minister Kishida was here also.
in which
Yeah.
the government also highlighted the acquisition of 5 more 97-meter vessels. So that is now currently being planned out already. We're hopeful that by 2027 or late 2026, we will have first deliveries of the 97-meter vessels.
And this is the last part of our discussion, but I think it's also very important. So dun sa isang episode natin, kausap natin yung Secretary of Energy. We talk about the Malambaya plant running out, but also adjacent efforts to still keep going. To a certain degree, we discuss also yung issue ng resources natin, whether yung isda or oil and gas resources. How important is the West Philippine Sea for our national economic and energy security? And bakit mahalaga din ang role ng Coast Guard, Commodore?
Alam mo, para sa akin, Richard, you can ask all our economists, all our marine scientists, and even the Department of Energy to quantify all of those resources na meron tayo sa West Philippine Sea. And I would like to leave that response to them.
But it could be in trillions, right?
Yeah, it could be trillions. But if you ask me, why is West Philippine Sea still matters to us? I think the most compelling reason is because West Philippine Sea symbolizes our own national identity as Filipinos. We have fought our independence and sovereignty long and hard, and we have national heroes who sacrifice their lives. Para sa akin, that's the most important reason why we need to keep on standing and fighting for the West Philippine Sea. This is our obligation to those great national heroes who sacrifice their lives. And at the same time, it is our obligation for the next generation of Filipinos to still have the West Philippine Sea.
Alam mo, Commander, I really appreciate you saying that kasi, I see the point of making it more relatable to people as a gut issue. Pero ang point ko kasi is when you make it about economics and pragmatics lang, usually maririnig mo sa kabilang campus, kung mabait tayo sa West Philippine Sea, magbibigay sila ng billions of investments. Literally, you have President Duterte making arguments na,
Let's just join exploration.
Yeah, let's just be meek and quiet. And he said, let's be meek and we'll have China's mercy. So basically, I always felt it is correct to emphasize na our food security, million sa ating mga kababayan, nakadepende dun sa ating access sa mga kaisdaan, sa sarili nating karagatan. But if you just reduce it to just economic issues, you're also vulnerable to this very economic counter-argument. Na magpakabait tayo na China, napakayaman na bansa. They can invest billions in your country, ganun. And sabi nga ni Digong, di ba, joint ownership na, mabilis na. And that's why I felt, hindi pwede hanggang dyan lang yung argument. That you ultimately have to bring it up to the level of dignidad. Diba? This is about our dignity as a nation. If we're just gonna allow anyone to just run us over dun sa sarili natin bakuran, based on international law, then good luck na lang sa atin. And I want to also emphasize this, because we're no longer a small power, right? We are a middle power. I was just in Brussels right after visiting ICC. I think everyone already knows about that. And nung kausap ko yung mga tao na taga-European Parliament, European Commission, yung mga different European experts, alam mo, ang tingin nila sa Pilipinas is, maayos tong bansang to kasi from the West Philippines issue to the ICC issue among others, hindi tayo perfecto, of course. But they're polite. They'll not say about, but ang tingin nila sa atin is, palaban tong bansa na to. Actually, napaka-mahalaga natin, napaka-central natin sa issue ng rules-based international order. Can you emphasize that? I know these things are easy to dismiss. Ay, nakaka-nosebleed. Ano yung rules-based? Nakaka-abs. But at the end of the day, life is about meaning, and meaning is about dignity and identity, right? And as far as the West Philippines is concerned, ito yung identity natin, dignidad natin, di ba? Karangalan natin bilang mga Pilipino. The rules-based order, how important that is. If we just allow anyone who's powerful to get their way, what kind of future are we going to leave to our children, our next generation?
Richard, the reason why the United Nations was created, the mere fact that we all learned from the two great world wars, First World War, Second World War, all the international institutions are well in place now because of what we call now the rules-based order. Ngayon, how do we try to relate that to the ordinary Filipino? Ang ibig sabihin lang naman ng rules-based order is wherein we all agree that despite of your size, whether you're big or small, powerful nation or rich nation or poor, kapag ang pinag-usapan natin dito is international law, for example, about the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, and you agree to such treaty, regardless of whatever status you have to respect the territorial limits you have as a country. And you also have to respect the limits of other countries towards you. Unfortunately, China, obviously, since they are probably thinking that they will be, be able to defeat the United States in terms of economic and military power, they started flexing their muscle and started bullying smaller countries, not just here in the Philippines. Sometimes the Filipino people forgot that it is not just the Philippines who is experiencing bullying in the entire South China Sea. The Vietnamese are also feeling it. The Malaysians and even the Indonesians are also experiencing bullying and aggression in their respective exclusive economic zone. And that's what President Noynoy Aquino has a very big impact and contribution when you talk about the rules-based order. Because when he decided to file a case at the arbitral court, it was a clear indication that the Philippine government really believes on the rules-based order and the international institutions that are in place to hold countries accountable of their violations in the international law. And that is what we are showing the entire world right now, that being mightier, being more powerful than anybody in the world doesn't make you right. Might will never make will never make it right. And it will never says like, since you can do that, then you have all the reasons to take over somebody's work.
And we don't want the rule of the jungle, right? Yeah. Because automatically the winners are going to be the superpowers and the losers will be the majority of humanity or majority of nations out there. Commodore Tarriela, thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for your insights. I know this is going to be more like kind of a bro motivational speak talk, but medyo, the past few years have been rough waters, right, for you guys in both literal and figurative sense. What keeps you going? What keeps you going? What keeps you going despite all of the trolling, all of the challenges you face, the risk of conflict, although I know that you're saying the probability is much lower than many people think. But what keeps you going? Is it this sense na nakaka-proud maging Pilipino, especially nowadays, dahil palaban tayo, dahil nare-recognize tayo, kahit hindi tayo tinutulungan ng mga kapitbahay natin, alam natin grudgingly deep inside, naiinis sila kasi we remind them of their inaction and all. I know you're not gonna say anything on that, but that's what I sense when I talk to our counterparts in ASEAN. I've attended some of the ASEAN summits and all throughout the years, including this year. I think grudgingly deep inside, nakikita ng iba, in fairness sa mga Pilipino, to palaban sila. And we're doing this on our own. There are no Americans over the horizon when you guys are doing your transparency initiative, right? Last time I checked, you're doing everything yourself, right? Are you feeling vindicated in a sense, feeling that history is on your side and you're riding the crest of history towards a much more self-respecting and respected and more autonomous Philippines?
Alam mo, para sa akin, Richard, I have this experience. I was eating in a certain restaurant and then the manager came to me and then she said, I would like to apologize to you.
Oh.
And then I said, bakit po, ma'am? She said, alam mo, sir, during the first few days ng Transparency Initiative, when you started exposing about Chinese aggression, I really hated you. Every time I see you on the news, ayaw na ayaw kitang makita sa TV. And then I said, what changed your mind?
Pero bakit ayaw niya? Dahil,
Yeah, and why?
Oh.
Why do you hate
Yeah.
me? And then she said, alam mo sir, I have 3 kids. So I'm a mother. And I think like, ang sabi kasi dati,
napoprovoke kayo ng war, parang gano'n.
magkakagera, maraming mamamatay, kawawa naman mga anak ko. That's why I hate you for it. I hate you every time you publicize all this. It's because I thought na totoo yung sinasabing you are the one escalating the tension. That standing up for the West Philippine Sea would lead to war. And then eventually, you had another interview. Ang sabi mo, nung tinanong ka, why are you doing this? I said, we are doing this not because for us Filipinos right now. We are doing this for the next generation of Filipinos. Kung tatay ka, nanay ka, may anak ka ngayon, you are actually doing this para sa mga anak mo. Para sa susunod na saling lahi ng Pilipino. President Bongbong Marcos never promised that by 2028, he's going to solve the problem in the West Philippine Sea. As what Justice Carpio said, our issue in the West Philippine Sea is intergenerational. Ipapasa natin ito sa susunod na saling lahi ng Pilipino. What we're doing right now, we should never get tired. We just have to keep on holding the line because the next generation of Filipinos will continue the fight. And that is the reason why I still have to, maintain the same level of stamina, never get tired of doing this. Because I think this is a fight for the next generation of Filipinos. And we just have to hold the line for them. Otherwise, pag sinukuan na natin ito ngayon, para na rin sinabi natin sa mga anak natin na, I'm sorry son, I'm sorry my dear daughter, I have failed you because I'm willing to give up West Philippine Sea right now.
And you're making sure that day doesn't come whereby tatanungin ka, tay, ba't wala kang ginawa when the moment came? At least now you know that your conscience is at ease.
Yes.
And you did the best that you could. And last time I checked, thank you so much for also clarifying that no one is asking for war here. In fact, the more strength and determination you show, the more grudging respect you're gonna get.
Mhm.
It's when you're weak that you invite aggression and bullying. Anyone should know that. Maraming salamat.
Thank you
Mabuhay
very
ka, Commodore Tarriela. And sana tuloy-tuloy lang yung serbisyo mo at yung bardagulan mo at Twitter. And looking forward to seeing more of you in TRICOM.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be invited, hopefully as an expert, not as a fake swindler. Kasi minapa-invite tayo. Baka doon sa Senate version, magkikita-kita tayo. Salamat,
Thank you
sir.
very much, Richard.
Thank you very much. And maraming salamat sa inyong lahat for joining us for this really comprehensive discussion with Commodore Jay Tarriela about yung ating laban sa West Philippine Sea, why we should continue to hold the fort, and bakit ito ay hindi lang ukol sa ating dignidad ngayon, but this is also about the future of the Filipino people, our economic security, our national security, and most importantly about a rules-based international order whereby smaller countries are not just bullied around by the superpowers.